We are either looking really smart or really dumb because I can't tell if it's live or not.
I don't see anything on the Facebook.
It does say that we're live,
Okay.
and we're just going to roll with it.
All right. Well,
It's
I mean,
not-
people can watch the recording, right? If it doesn't work. I don't have any questions from people. But there's plenty to talk about.
There's plenty to talk about.
Absolutely.
The live streaming counter is not working, so we're just going to run with it. It says it is live.
Okay.
I can't check because I don't have a computer to check on.
What would you check? What'd you check?
I would go to Facebook.
So for the site, when we place this there, we'll be editing this part out, right? We could do that.
Editing will happen here. So
Okay.
if we are live, hello to everybody. My name is Jamie Butler. I'm an author and a medium, and I'm here today with Brian Mercer, who is also an incredible author, and I will let him talk working with a new format today, the Sling Studio, and being able to broadcast to Facebook, YouTube, Learn It Live. See, it's working. And we're just trying this on for the first time. We do have plans to come back and be with you every other week on a Friday afternoon and talk about our viewpoints of animals, especially animals in the light, so animals who have crossed over and animal consciousness. I will take some time now to throw it over to Brian. I am in Atlanta, Georgia, and Brian is over in Seattle, aren't you?
I am, yes. Where? So are you throwing the ball to me? Okay, so my name is Brian Mercer, and I'm the author of a book called Mastering Astral Projection, a 90-day guide to an out-of-body experience. And I'm also the author of a novel called Aftersight, which is put out by Estrella Press. It's about 4 girls who gain the ability to perceive the afterlife. I'm also an editor at Author Magazine, which is how Jamie and I met. With this site, I'll be writing a weekly blog, and I will be contributing to stories and that will talk about animals who survive death incidents, my own personal experience with that. I've had some pretty extraordinary experiences recently, and we're hoping to hear from all of you. So please visit us at animalsinthelight.com to read those stories and to submit stories of your own. There's a contact page, and we hope to hear from you. Get your stories that hopefully we'll be able to share here. So like Jamie, I have a deep interest in what happens to our animals after they cross over. And like I said, I have some personal experiences, one of which is my former cat, Lucy, who I believe has reincarnated into a new cat body and is residing with us now. And if you want to read that story, it's on the front page of animalsinthelight.com. And I've also have another cat named Mrs. Claus. It's like Claws, and she has visited several times. She was caught once on camera, and I have other recording devices that I've caught her, and so looking forward to sharing that evidence with you guys.
Yeah, we'll be able to post, Brian, all of the images that you have of her that you've caught with your infrared camera at night.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's going to be great. Okay, I apparently don't understand how all of this works, so we're going to do it this way. So everybody is probably giggling.
So what is this way?
This way is where we're both on camera at the same time.
Okay. That makes it easier.
And it's in front of my phone, but it's better than the guesswork that I was doing a moment ago. There's quite a lag between the editing on the two.
Oh, okay.
When you switch over from camera to camera. And through practice, we will get this down much better.
Sure.
So since we have that, I would like to ask you a few questions. Is that possible?
Absolutely. I have some questions for you, too.
Oh, my God. Did you really?
Yeah.
I don't know if you mentioned Authors Magazine.
Yes, I did.
But could you explain a little bit more on the role that you did there so people get to understand you a little bit better?
Sure, absolutely. So, Author Magazine is a part of the organization here in Seattle and the region called the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, and I'm on the board of directors. And for Author Magazine, I am a senior editor there. I am the webmaster, and I do interviews, not so much as much anymore, but interviewing authors. And so when I was in New York, and I was having lunch with Jamie, one of, I guess, your regent, Rita Rosencrantz, and she mentioned your book, the participation in your book with Elisa, with Eric, and that's how I first came in contact with you. And then I found out about your amazing memoir, I'll call it memoir, about being a medium, and that's one of my favorite books, and absolutely my favorite interview on Author Magazine. So right now, actually, that interview is at Animals on the Light as a placeholder, because we have no video content yet, which with this will. But I imagine that's something we could put up there, I guess, as a blog entry or an older interview.
Oh, that's already happening. So
Okay.
we are live. It is working just fine.
Okay, good.
But we're just going to roll with it this way.
Right.
We have a few comments from Peggy Sue. She said she's been visited by her dog and cat, and she's also seen them also.
Oh, wow.
I mean, these are just things.
Please let us go to the site and let us know what that is, and let us know if we can share it, because that's what we want to do. Because I frequently will hear stories from people, and they'll say, oh yeah, my cat or my dog, or even my horse, there were some evidence of them returning and visiting, and even sometimes like 20, 25 years later. But you don't read that, you don't hear those stories, and we really want to bring them together in one place and share them, so we can support people who are grieving, or who are worrying about their elder pet and wondering what's going to happen to them. So both Jamie and I both have lost animals recently, so that kind of makes it more like a visceral.
It hits home a little bit more.
Right. Exactly.
And we both just received new pets in our life. Yours? Well, mine was Umi back at the beginning of the year, who was a Lynx Point Siamese cat, and Dandelion, yours.
Yes, just arrived 2 days ago. So yeah.
It's always fun to have a new baby in the house.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So Michelle is saying, please explain, how is it possible for them to incarnate as the same animal again? Question mark. Question mark, question mark.
Okay.
Like, I've been told by a few mediums that they incarnate as what needed. Usually back to human, what's up? And you have firsthand experience in this, Brian.
Right. So I first read, I think the first time I read about an animal reincarnating was in a book by Richard Bach called Bridge Across Forever. And that's a story about Richard and his soulmate, meeting his soulmate. And in the latter part of the book, he and his wife, Leslie, decide they want to learn how to have an out-of-body experience together. And so they're both actively trying to do this. And one night, Richard is successful, and he rises up above his body, and he sees that his wife also rises up above her body. And he looks down at the bed, and he sees two of his cats, and he realized there were cats. From this perspective, he realized there were cats that he had as when he was growing up, and that they had been reborn. And so that's the first time I heard the concept of that. And so when Lucy crossed over in 2012, I had also read books from animal communicators, and one of them is called Animals. I can't think of it. It's Kim Sheridan is the
But it's the Blue Book.
And and she talked about what was that?
It was a Blue Book.
Look, yes. And what was interesting about Kim Sheridan's work is she kept pet rats, and so the rats, I think they have a lifespan of like 3 years, and she came up with a way to give them great nutrition, and they last a little bit longer. But so they were constantly recycling, and she has a lot of stories about her rats coming back in different rat bodies. But the idea, I think, is that of course I read accounts of this happening to other pet owners through animal communicators. And one of the things that I kept reading, because everyone who loses a pet and would kind of like to get that back in a different cat body, the thing you think is, well, how am I going to find you?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer in all these stories about different authors, all without exception was, "I will find you," which is, okay, that. So you just have to cross your fingers. And in the story of Lucy, and I can talk about it on one of our shows in detail at some point. I talk about what it was like to go back to where I thought she was going to meet us, and how circumstances of traffic, there was a traffic snarl that made us late, and it was interesting just how the right cat seemed to land in our lap. So, but I think the idea being, though, that, and then you can tell me your perspective on this, Jamie, that animals have contracts with us sometimes, and sometimes as a life partner, and because their bodies don't last as long as ours, they will come back and to be with us again, to help us, to guide us through that life.
One of the things I enjoy most about animal consciousness is they don't carry around like humans. We tend to line up easier with the negative parts of life, the worry, the chaos, and then when we align with that, we just start to develop the language of overcoming it. Like, I'm going to strive and I'm going to achieve and I'm going to be better at it. And we have this sense of duality, hardship and love. Right. And animals don't really have that, even though they have hardship, whether it's being in the wild, not having enough food or temperatures, like things wrapped around survival. They don't necessarily carry around those deeper emotions of regret, worry.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes,
I shoulda, coulda, woulda, but I didn't. I mean,
right.
They react from every core part of their being, and they show up for you. So
right.
When you talk about them coming back and incarnating into the next pet companion,
right,
it kind of makes sense, not in the way that it's karma-based, where they have to come back and finish what they've started, or
right.
However you want to believe karma. I am not a big believer of karma, but we can get into that talk another day. But it's they connect to their family, and they want to be there out of love. And when we attune to love, just like you were saying, Brian, everything aligns up. You get into traffic, you get delayed, but really it's not a delay, it's perfect alignment. And then they show up, and it's insane. It's crazy.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
One of my most recent beloved animals, Bunny, which a lot of the Lumineers, she was
right.
the little black cat with 3 legs, that she was maybe 6 weeks old, and she was in Florida, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and we were driving through Florida, and she was in the middle of a 6-lane highway. Cars zipping by, so many opportunities for people to stop and help this animal. Just insane. Hundreds,
right.
if not, more. Why didn't anybody stop? Like, it boggled me. I was angry for so long of why someone did not stop. At least just to get the animal out of the road. You know?
Right.
You didn't have to take her home, but my God, get her out of the road.
Right.
And
right.
nobody did. It's like she was put there in a different state, in a different place, in a peculiar position so that she would find us.
Right, exactly. And you found her, that was supposed to happen.
Yes. And what was crazy, on the incarnation note, I had a kitty cat. I'm a cat person. You'll figure that out pretty quickly.
That way. So I'm going to try to include dog stuff. I mean, and there's certainly in the book there's be dog stuff as well. But
we have a lot of dog things popping up. I did have a lovely Dalmatian for a long time, but I had a kitty cat. His name was Babu, and Babu was a snuggler. He would nurse on your ear. He'd hold you by the neck. I mean, he was such a snuggie. And he got injured, and he actually got stuck on a dog-eared fence line. The fence posts that have the peaks?
Yes.
His back leg got wedged in between 2 of the posts, and unfortunately he was hanging there for 3 days on the back side of my neighbor's property where we couldn't see him.
Right.
He was dehydrated, his leg was damaged, and finally when we came across him, and we looked from the moment he was gone,
right.
When we finally found him, we took him in. We had to amputate his leg, and I brought him home, and the first day he was allowed outside, he and a car met, and he crossed over.
So
Like,
he is it that was that you think that was an accident and that he decided I don't want to continue this way, or that he was supposed to go the first time and you interrupted that process?
I think he was supposed to go the first time and I interrupted.
I see. Yeah.
I mean, it was like a Hail Mary just to get him to live from the first occasion.
Right.
But I was so hurt and confused. How could I put that much love and care? And I already felt guilty that he was hurting somewhere and trapped somewhere. Why couldn't I find him? You know, hello, psychic, medium.
Yes.
Like,
right, exactly.
get out your dowsing rods or something. But I was like, kitty cat to disappear for a day is normal, you know?
Right.
Second day is not normal. Like, I was going berserks. But, and then for him to, you know, meet the car like that, I didn't forgive myself for years. Guys, I didn't sleep. I wouldn't allow myself to take care of another animal. It was just horrendous how it tortured me. And then one day I looked at Bunny, the black cat, who already came with the damaged leg. And I was like, look at that. 3 legs.
Wow. 3-leg cat, yeah.
And she survived it, and we got to have her in our life for just a few years. I mean, she crossed with stomach cancer.
Right.
But at least it was a way we knew, and we care provided for her, and we said goodbye. And it was almost like I got to do that all over again with Babu.
Right. Without the trauma. I mean, if I remember with Bunny, it was pretty quick, right?
Yeah, oh my God.
But you knew about it, unlike Babu, where he was just gone, you know what I'm saying? There was no kind of chance to say goodbye, right?
Yeah, you know, I think I side with a lot of Lumineers. If you have an indoor pet or indoor-outdoor, you know, when they're in the outdoors, it's the pet's world. They get to make their own decisions. You don't. But you're responsible for them. So I felt like, how could I ever let that cat out? I was such a bad person.
Right, and that's one of the things I want to explore on this, you know, in Animals in the Light, is this sense of when something happens to our animals and we perceive it as our neglect, and what the contract is there, and if that was truly an accident, or if that was meant to happen. Because there are, you know, I know people personally who have had that type of experience, and the guilt that is associated with it is terrible, you know. And so one of the things about Mrs. Claus coming back is that she was around for like 16, 17 years, and we were really bonded together. And so that's what you're going to see when I think do you think we'll first talk about it here, or will I write a blog entry? At some point the pictures will be posted. But what happened was she crossed over after a long illness, and I had a webcam pointed at her her bed, where she was ill for so long. So when I was gone, if I wanted to check up on her, I could. And the night she crossed over, I couldn't stay in the house, so I left, and the camera was still pointing at it, and it has a motion activated sensor. And so what happens is it takes a photo when there's motion, and it sends it back. So the next morning I looked at my email, and there were all these photos that have been taken, and some of them are not of anything that is, you know, corporal. So if any cat, I think, is going to come back, and she's, I didn't know, I think she's pretty sure she's been back since then. Some story. So here's one story really quickly. One of my hobbies is I'm learning jazz improv on the piano. And Mrs. Claus, if you're in the house with someone who's practicing the piano, that can get a little tedious. And Mrs. Claus would take this for about an hour, 40 minutes, an hour, and then she would like rub up against my leg and say, okay, that's enough. We've had it. We need to take a break. And one time I was playing the piano, practicing, and it was about an hour into it, and I felt on the side of my leg, it felt like, you know how that feeling when your sock kind of rolls down for whatever reason, like you're walking or running? It felt like that, but only on one side of my leg, and it was a side where she would have rubbed up against it. Like, enough already. So if she is visiting, I always think if I'm playing the piano for too long, she probably doesn't stick around.
Oh my God, I love that. So Brian gets to watch, when you can't see me, he gets to watch me make faces at all my electrical equipment, because
side by side, yeah.
I'm dumbfounded right now about how this is really working.
Okay.
For those of you who are just joining us, my name is Jamie Butler. I'm an author and a medium. I'm located here in Atlanta, Georgia, and we have Brian Mercer, who is also an author. And we have come together to create a project which will in the future be a book called Animals in the Light. And we have a website that Brian put together, thank you. It's called animalsinthelight.com. You can head over there and look at it so far. Brian, you're going to be writing blogs, and I'm going to be posting videos.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be posting this show, and there'll be stories, hopefully, from me and from you guys who hopefully will submit your stories and share your experiences and help other people who are mourning. I also wanted to say with the website, it's maybe 95% there. I haven't optimized it for mobile, which I'm going to do this weekend. So, but the content is mostly there.
Thank you. And I wanted to reinstate Lumineers that yes, we are asking for your animal stories. If you'd be so brave and so willing, you can put your fingers to the keyboard now wherever you're watching us, which could be on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and also Learn It Live. Big shout out to Sydney Clover. Thank you very much for helping me set up today and helping us optimize everything on our Learn It Live platform. You can find all of our videos up on the website, animalsinthelight.com, or on these platforms that you're watching right now, because we're going to keep it all up and it's all going to be for free. And we're really trying to create a space for us to come together and talk about love, grief, compassion, bereavement, communication to the afterlife that happens between humans and their beloved animals. And I know it's not a possessive, they're animals, but they're animal companions. Maitland gets on to me quite a bit, which she'll show up in some of these where we can answer your questions that you have about your pets and about your pet's well-being. But for today, we're going to hang out for about 45 minutes and just kind of groom what's happening here. We'll be here every other Friday, and we'll have kind of a different theme and a little structure. But we are so ready to get our groove on. I wanted to share that Jillian said she saw her mother's deceased dog while in meditation, and once she heard my deceased grandfather say my name, and I woke up, and then, I'm reading it like she wrote it, and then heard the sound of the dog collar jingling. They were best buds on earth. So they were together on earth, and then after she heard the voice, she heard the dog collar.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
One of the things, Jamie, let me ask you a few questions, because I think this is, I put a few questions on the first blog entry that I want you to answer, because I think it's going to be the biggest questions that our viewers have. And so the first one is, what is the afterlife like for our animals, when they cross over? Because I like to imagine myself personally like a field, like cats are chasing butterflies, dogs are swimming in ponds and stuff like that. But I mean, to the best of, from your experience as a psychic medium, what do you perceive that to be like for them?
I'll take it in two different directions if that's okay.
Sure.
So one is from my opportunity to communicate with animals who've crossed over. I did Amelia Kincaid. She's an animal communicator. Mm-hmm. And she would go around and teach how to communicate with animals, and I wanted that so bad. So I signed up for the class. I went with my veterinarian at the time, and I'm there and I'm trying. They bring in animals, and people bring in photographs of their animals, and then finally at the end of the day, we had done some techniques, and they partnered me up. They partner everybody up, and the woman hands me the picture, and I get the picture of the animal, and all this information is coming in. I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it. And I named the exact toys, how the house was laid out, where the doors were. It was like I was looking through the eyes of the dog.
Wow.
And then it hit me, and I looked at her and I said, oh, your animal has crossed over. And she said yes, and I go, that makes sense. Like, I can talk to them when they cross over, but I never really developed the skill of talking to them while they were alive.
I see. Oh, interesting.
So this first opened the door for me to allow animals into my readings, which don't happen a lot. And from what I've gathered is that they, just like people, maintain their characters, their likes, their dislikes. They identify with their name. They identify with the emotions that they had when they were alive, but they don't necessarily have to keep the same shape. So they can show up. I have seen some animals show up as people size and look like people and say, I was the dog, I was the cat, I was the horse, I've had that.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So this also reinstates, well, not reinstates, but this also supports the theory that, life is life is life, and you can
Right.
incarnate to animal, plant, human.
Right.
But then my other viewpoint is I had an experience once where I crossed over. I didn't have a death experience. My body was not in danger, but I had an experience where I went into a deep trance and crossed over. And I remember looking sharply at the grass and at the surroundings and the colors. They were vibrant in a way that I can't describe. And there were animals there that I can't describe either. Their look, their purpose, their intelligent level, quite amazingly different than what we have here, which just tuned me in that this whole hierarchy thing about how humans are at the top of the chain and most intelligent and kind of run the roost because we're the most mobile and maybe, I wouldn't say the most communicative, but maybe most mobile.
Sure.
That structure doesn't exist there. And so your, beloved kitty cat or lizard, they're not going to have that same placed upon them,
Right. But if you had a dog that liked to run around in the dirt and lay in the sun and stay warm, is that something that dog is going to necessarily do in the afterlife, or they're going to be a blob of light and
just be a blob of light. Yeah, I think that they would choose to lay in the dirt and be in the sun.
I see. So we're talking. We have a potential of an Earth-like environment that's more idyllic, is what you're saying.
Yes, but you almost find that when you get there, maybe your favorite thing isn't the dirt and the sun anymore. Maybe it's something different.
I see.
And the animals are able to absolutely talk about it. Straight up. It's incredible.
So on that note, I mean, this is not the next question I was going to ask, but it's one of the three questions I had, because I think what we as people who have animal companions, we think, and when they cross over, we want to have a mental picture, right, of where they are, whether that's a cat chasing butterflies or whatever, and so is that something that you can supply us, or so my next question would be, do they? Well, I guess I know the answer to this. I mean, they do visit us. That's pretty? Would that say that's pretty common? And if that's so, how frequent are those visits, or is there no way to say for sure? It just varies on the animal.
It varies on the frequency. I mean, it's just like you. Do you visit your mom, or do you call your dad every day? Do you check in? I was just reading Janie Shipmaster. She said she felt a cat jump on the bed and knead on her legs. She felt the heat from it. And then when I looked up, none of my other cats were on the bed. So, oh yes, they come to visit,
Yes.
And keeping up with the same, like this kitty that visited Janie probably was the one who slept in bed with her and had those same gestures. Right. I think it's a good point to make. Keep hitting the table. A good point to make is that when our animals transition, they have the choice to stay. Sometimes staying with the family that raised them for that amount of time or provided that space for them for that amount of time is their slice of heaven. And that's where they want to be, and it's perfect. They don't need to just cross over and disappear off the face of the earth. And just like with some people, I have helped animals transition, which is really nice. Now they have animal hospice.
Oh, yeah.
And but I've helped animals cross over, and then they don't show up back to the house. Like my bunny cat didn't come back and see me for months. Months. And it was devastating because I'm like, I'm the psychic. I'm ready. Right. Where are you? I love you. I miss you. I'm open. Nothing. Just crickets. And then one day I saw her in the kitchen just like kind of hopping by, and I was like, what? Second look, and the cat's not there. I'm like, I know I saw that. Like, that was so weird. And it happened again last week. I was in the living room, and this big black thing went by, and I got up and I looked, and my daughter goes, do you need something? I was like, yeah, did you just see Bunny? And she was like, no. I'm like, okay.
All right. So, wow. Right. Well, so I mean, like with Mrs. Claus, so she had been around for 16 years, 17 years, and she was are kind of arthritic toward the end, and she was always on my bed. And so it was and it was like it was like the bed itself like gave love, you know, because that she was almost.
Aww.
In fact, if she got off the bed when she was older, Wilson, one of my other cats, would herd her back onto the bed. It's like, well, what are you doing here? You need to go where your place is. And when I went through my divorce, she was so kind about, like, she would come up on the bed and she would plop in front of me every night, and I'd put my hand in front of my face. She put her head there, and we would sleep that way until literally whatever time I got up. That's when she would move. And so to have this cat then cross over, and it was so devastating. But the next day, to see the pictures of what was clearly a cat in the room, like coming back, I felt a little guilty that I wasn't there, because clearly she was like she showed up at the spot where she always was, in the bed, and where she crossed over, and so it made sense that she would come back there, but when I saw these photos, it changed the way I mourned for her. You know, it's like, I know. I asked her that day, a friend suggested this, could you please send me a sign that you're okay? And I didn't expect anything so tangible, but there it was. Yeah, I mean, it can't get much more tangible than that. And it changed my mourn for her. But and one of the things that I think people who go to our site and we share more stories, I think we're going to find that even though we know for a fact that our cat or our dog or our horse or our snake or a bunny is around still, it doesn't change the fact that they're not physically, they're not corporally there. We can't pet them, we can't hug them, we can't see them. And I think so it helps, but it's not going to take away the pain, right? But it does support.
So where would you like people to put their stories? Right here on the Facebook or the YouTube?
So
or
if you
go to the website.
The lights, scroll down. There's a contact page, and if you scroll down on the home page, there's a link to the contact site, and it's basically it's just inviting you people to share their stories. Excuse me.
Brian, here's a good one. Andrea Brame. She's saying that her animals are integral in helping her cope with a recently diagnosed mental illness. And she's saying that, amazingly, my dog always knows when I'm about to swing, like manic to depressive. How is that? Do they see the vibrational change? And she would love more, like, talking about things like bipolar, depression, schizophrenia, and so forth. I think that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. Well, that reminds me of Chico a little bit about when he crossed over. One of the things you learn when you read books from animal communicators about animals, they know so much more than we give them credit for. I mean, I've read accounts of, for example, an animal was getting ill, and it turned out that the daughter was having trouble in school and having some emotional ills about being a teenager, and the cat was taking this on. And it knew that there was, I don't know, maybe you can speak to this. The cat didn't know necessarily that that the daughter was having bad grades. Maybe it did, I don't know. The Chico knew that his animal, his human, was having relationship issues and gave advice on relationships. So, so maybe you can speak to that, Jamie. Is this something they see, something they sense? I mean, because animals communicate from the heart chakra, right?
Yes, they communicate emotionally. So whatever you're putting out, your worry, your stress, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical, they're going to be reading it and picking it up. So it's quite common for your animal to have the same illness as the parent, the human parent.
Right, exactly.
Or the person who it spends most time with.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of, so what you're saying, an animal sensing like a swing from emotions from being depressive to manic, it's because that's coming out the heart chakra, and that the animal's just picking that up.
Yeah, they can feel it before the person is about to express it. Just like how they can identify if somebody's going into epilepsy, and just how they can sense if somebody is about to cross over, and just how they can sniff out cancer and all kinds of things. It is incredible. They work more on a vibrational level than we do consciously. But I think once we learn and develop those skills again, they'll become second nature, but right now in our evolution, it's really not. And it's something that we can really pair up with our animal companions and use that ability for all of our benefit.
And okay.
I was going to change the topic. I was reading.
One quick thing.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things about that makes it, I think, tougher when we lose an animal is because if we lose, like if you lose your mother or a friend, you can write a message to the friend, right, and get a sense that they're going to get it, or you can even talk to that person, and we know from what we hear about near-death experiences that they get that information. But when we want to connect with our animal, they're not, like you talked about, they're not necessarily processing in language, they're processing with these emotions. And I don't think it's as satisfying if we want to thank them for the service they gave to us, the love they gave to us. I mean, how do we do that, Jamie? Do we do that with language? Do we do that? How do we best, or can we do that with language?
I think we can. It's
okay.
The intent you put behind the language. If you can focus more of the purpose of the communication behind the meaning of it, you'll be more fulfilled as the person, and the animal will sense the clarity behind the words. But if you're going to ramble a little bit and go, I just really want to say thank you because I don't know, you're just this and that, then yes, they get that you're grateful, but at the same time, you're uneasy with it. So if you can take a nice deep breath and settle into being a little vulnerable and put that intent behind the words, perfect.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Sounds like. Yeah. Okay.
Keep it simple, dummy. Just kidding. I love those books, though. Well, I have a Lumineer, Shelley Ham. She's wondering, Brian, how long that you've researched and studied this.
Oh, wow. So I think I mentioned I wrote a novel, Aftersight, about these 4 girls who gain the ability to perceive the afterlife, and one of them sees animals. And so in order to do research for that book, I actually took an animal communication class. So that was part of it. But I would say on the order of 15 years of reading, and I think the first book I got was when I was visiting London in the bookstore, and there was an animal communicator, and she had a book that was just amazing. It was basically her. It's kind of like your book, your memoir was her memoir about how she gained the ability to communicate with animals, and it seemed like it was innate. And for her, it was horses. She was a rider from a very young age, and she found that she had the ability. But what was interesting with her is that she could hear them with language, and she talked about once where she was visiting France, and she saw a rat she was like sunbathing near a pool, and she saw a rat, and she was getting verbal language from it, and she said there was an accent. So I don't know what to make of that.
That's awesome. Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, totally accents, yes. That's kind of one of our favorite things to do, is to make voices for our neighbors' animals.
Right, exactly.
And they'll tell me, Jamie, you hear them. What do you think they sound like? I was like, yeah, but when I hear them, it's English. I'm hearing English.
Right.
And it's not necessarily proper or smooth, so you can get a hint of how their communication skills are, but it's mostly a feeling. So I'm not going to say, oh, yes, he sounds French and with a cigar in his mouth or something, but it's so cute. I love doing that stuff.
Right.
Mary Eddington, our love goes out to you. She just assisted her angel today. And so this is a very impactful, this is a...
Right.
I like to call them birth out days, but your transitioning day.
Right. And I'm just trying to think, I'm going to cry on this show at least once per episode.
At least once per episode.
Right.
That is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And I've had chronic pain, and I've given birth, and I've done some other crazy, really hard things.
Right.
But to be with your one and only beloved animal companion.
Right.
There you go. Let's hit it.
Right.
Cue the tissues. And to be able to assist them is the most...
It's a gift. You're giving them a
right?
gift. Especially if they're suffering. But it's, I have a friend who's a veterinarian, and he has this thing. He said, there's this moment where you don't want to wait too long to do it because then the animal's suffering, but we don't want to do it too soon. And there's this that it's it's agonizing. And you talk about, we'll talk about in episodes how to, future episodes about how to help make that decision. But it brings me to one of the last of the three questions I want to ask you. It's perfect that you brought this up. Is that we read about people crossing over, and we seeing a bright light and seeing relatives who crossed over, and then kind of maybe there's like a spirit guide or someone or some kind of guiding entity helping us across. What is it like for animals when that happens? So like you have a dog that you're helping cross over. What are they perceiving?
All right, well, here's my shout out to Moose Balsamides. He's a chocolate lab. And I had the pleasure of sitting with him and assisting his crossover. He was my neighbor's baby, and he lived a long life. And I would come over on a daily basis, and they'd go, "Okay, Jamie, is he ready?" Because he'd talk to me. He's very clear with me, but he wouldn't talk to his parents. Because they were hurting. They were in a family dynamic situation where Moose was just like, no, I'm good, and trying to tough out.
Right.
And when I would come in, he'd be like, "Oh, hey, you're here. Can you put your hands on me? Can you do that Reiki thing? Can you?" And he would come straight to me. He would get up and move to come see me to get healed. When he wouldn't move for his parents, he'd play his stoic.
Right.
When he crossed over, he was explaining to me all the light he saw. And his people were there. So he had been alive long enough to have met his human mom's parents who'd cross over,
Right.
or the mother. And so the mother was there. So there were human people that he knew in this life that showed up, but also his tribe. His brother was there and dog spirit. His mother dog was there, but also there were guides of his that are in his soul family that showed up.
Wow.
Because it's going to be hard to remember, but when we're talking about animals, a life is life.
Right,
And so they have their soul family, they have their tribe, and they have their soulmates and everything, just like we do. And you will hear or see, and we'll probably experience this when we get into answering questions or having Maitland come in,
Right.
of how the dog will bring in their guides who are in your soul family group, and maybe that's how all this got together and so forth. It's kind of mind-boggling just to skim it, but yes, they see the light, they go into a different dimensional plane, they cross over into that plane, they have guides, they have their family, animal and people, and it kind of works very similar to what ours does. But I think theirs is just a little bit more open because they're not in their mind, they're already down here in their heart. It makes it easier for a transition.
So I guess the way I think about it is you've got two situations going when you lose an animal. It's conceivable that the animal will come back in a new animal body, the spirit. And I want to talk more about that on the future show, because it's not exactly what you might think about it, right?
We need to make a list now and take notes.
Yeah, exactly.
We already, just on one of our Facebook pages, we have 64 comments that I haven't even read.
Right. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. No. We need to. And this is why I think this is so important, is because there's this huge demand out there for this information, and this is a place where people can come for support and to hear that the life goes on. But the other thing to say is they can come back in a new animal body and come back to you, or they're waiting for you. So when you do cross over, that so it's not the end. It doesn't make it necessarily any easier, but it's not the end. But I mean, the idea, I really do want to talk about the whole reincarnation thing. But Lucy came to me, I think, a few nights after she passed, and there's some kind of paranormal stuff I can talk about that. But so I got the sense that she wanted to come back. She had intended to come back. So that's one of the reasons why I was kind of listening for her. But if you have an animal that you have protected and you kept indoors all their life, and then they leave the house and they're gone, they're outside the house, it's like, well, they're out there, they're free, but the idea they're going to come back, but having to trust that is tough, because you're used to them being where you can see them and where you can keep them safe and where you can be under control to the so it's tough to let go of that.
Yeah, it is tough.
Right.
Can you believe we're about to reach our 45-minute mark?
I see that. Yes. Wow.
That's
but there's
insane.
so much content to go through.
So I wanted to say thank you just one more time to everybody who's watching, and that we are going to have these shows every other week, and we're going to post them up for free. We'd love for them to be interactive. That's why we've opened it up. If you would love to leave your comments on the thread, if you have topics that you would like for us to cover, please do so. Or head over to animalsinthelight.com and you can write your stories about your aha moments with your pets, or maybe your afterlife communication with your beloved animal companions, whether it's domestic or wildlife. We'd love to hear about them. Also, Maitland will be trans-channeling in on some of these occasions, and you'll be able to ask questions directly to her, and she'll give little insights and tips. And Brian and I will sharpen up our game on this multimedia platform. And Brian is highly aware he's a little bit red tinted today.
Yes. I worked on getting the lighting right with a friend of mine who's in the movie business, but the lighting, it was at night, so I don't. Anyway, so I'm going to work on that. I also want to mention we're going to have a monthly newsletter that you can sign up for. I promise you're not going to be deluged with email. This is basically just going to let you know what's new on the site. So if you want to look at the blog entries or look at the new stories, and depending on how many stories we have, I can maybe include some of those in the newsletter. But it's not going to be anything that's going to overwhelm you. It's going to be once a month at most. So.
And it's fine because it's feeding my soul, and if I can speak for you, Brian, maybe feeding your soul by having this chat interactive forum with a little bit of lesson in helping us kind of give birth to this book.
Absolutely. It's exciting.
It's very
so
exciting.
Tell your friends that we're here.
Yes, tell them. Let's do this. I'm ready.
Yes.
Let's do this.
So we'll be here again 2 weeks from today.
Yes, we will, and you'll get notifications if you are in our community at Learn It Live, and you'll also see the posts up on Facebook as well. It's hard to say goodbye.
Yeah, I know. We're just getting started.
I know, and I don't know if I know how to turn this off. If I'm being honest with you guys.
All right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, oh, Claudia says he has a lot of love and light around him. There you go, Brian. You do.
Oh, good.
Okay,
it's
Lumineers.
Red, it's a red line. Red tinted.
I'm going to figure out how to turn this off.
Okay.
So, thank you so much for being here and being present. And Brian, thank you so much for your faith and your ability to work with me, and especially work with me as I learn all the media.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And I have stories to tell you about dandelion and some paranormal stuff that's happened even.
Oh, and let's collect some of the pictures next time and we can show them.
Absolutely.
I'd love that. Okay, let's see. Take care, everybody.